Good day, everybody. Welcome back. Today we will discuss your first module, and it is composed of three parts. The first part is functions, nature rather, and functions of philosophy. The second one is processes and tools, and the third will be looking at into reflection or the philosophical reflection. Philosophy comes from the two words philo and Sophie. Philo means love, and Sophie means wisdom. So, if put together, would come up with the meaning love of wisdom. Therefore, people who study philosophy, they're called philosophers. And they say they are the lovers of wisdom. Let's talk about where exactly this idea came from. Philosophy originated from Greece, specifically a certain town they called Miletus. In there's a certain man whose name is Thales. Maybe that's the time, that was around 624 to 546 BCE. Okay, that was the time when he existed. Thales is actually considered as the first ever philosopher. He had this strange belief, contrary to the belief of the Greeks. Greeks actually, they believe and they adore their mythological myths, their myths. They like those stories, and many of them believe in those. But this man Thales proposed something which changed the idea and somehow made the Greeks think about whether mythology is indeed something that they have to believe in. Thales posed a question. He asked, what is the ultimate stuff of the universe? What is that something which is common among everything found on earth or in the universe itself? He wanted to know if there is something that binds everybody, something that is found in each and every creature existing in the universe. And for the Greeks, that is questionable because they have their stories that make them feel good and believe that life is all about adventures, about gods, the small letter gods, and about fairies and magic. That's what they believe in. But for Thales, when he posed the question, it opened the mind of a lot of people. It led them to depart. For some of them finally opened their mind to that idea, that question, which made them realize there is something more other than the myths that they believe in. And so, because of that question which Thales gave to the people, he came up into understanding or studying more about philosophy and religion. For him, philosophy is all about reason, and religion is about faith. Faith in something higher than any one of us. Faith in somebody who created the universe where we live in. And his work, furthermore, looked at the difference between philosophy and religion, how they are similar in some ways, or how they are, most especially, how different they are. That is the work of Thales. Therefore, he is considered as the first ever philosopher. Based on the work of Thales, they came up into characterizing philosophical activity, into three things. They have widest generalization, number one. These are the three characteristics of philosophical activity. Okay, number one characteristic is something that they call widest generalization. Widest the keyword is widest. When you generalize something, then in that manner it is in a bigger scope. So for this one, the philosophers are concerned with big issues. Okay? Widest generalization. Big issues. When you philosophize something, or when you pose an argument, you are looking at the bigger picture of things, the bigger issue. Another characteristic is the fundamental. In here, the philosophers look into the basic part, or what started that thing, the idea where everything came from. They look into, or they use in their argument, something which is the base or the support. And another characteristic is the desire to integrate things into one coherent whole. Desire to integrate things into one. Okay, we'll make that shorter. So these three characteristics are considered when somebody, or when people called philosophers, do their arguments or pose something. Some of them would use widest generalizations, looking at the bigger picture of the argument. Some would use fundamental, then that would be using or looking into the fundamental or the basic, the support. And number three, some look into or uses their desire into integrating things into one. That would be the basis for their arguments. Now let's talk about the branches of philosophy. There are actually two branches. We have the cognitive branch and the normative branch. Okay, let's talk about the cognitive branch first. Under the cognitive branch, we have this thing they call philosophical anthropology. What exactly that is? Philosophical anthropology is actually, or focuses on, the fundamental and essential characteristics of a human nature. It studies the existence, the fundamental and the essential, the most important, the basic and the most important characteristic of a human nature. That study is called philosophical anthropology. Other than that, we also have this epistemology. which looks at the nature and the means of something. These are under the cognitive branch. Another branch a while ago I told you is called the normative branch. Normative branch is actually, or focuses actually on the standard, or in the standard of good, standard of the good, is the standard of the good. Under that we have ethics, we have politics, and the third, what do you think? Aesthetics. Okay. They say these two actually came from this. So ethics for philosophy is the driving force, or it's the technology. It's the way into doing something. And this is considered as the technology of philo. Okay, it's the driving force. And we said a while ago rather, that politics and aesthetics came from ethics, because, and basically when we say ethics, it is the way of doing things correctly, considering yourself, of course, and not just yourself but other people, everybody around you. It's the way you behave. It's behaving well in any place that you are put. That is ethics, the right way of doing something. Politics now is, if ethics is broad, politics is specific into the social system. So politics is ethics where? In the social system. It's the way of doing things correctly when the environment that you are put in is in the public area, in a social system. And so I think our politicians know that very well. And we have the third, aesthetics. It is the art, the nature of art. Okay? It is how we do things, arrange things in such a manner that it is beautiful. Let's say when you organize something, or when you plan an activity that should be done by a group of people publicly, you just don't do it in a way that it is mixed up. It has to be aesthetically approved, or it has to be presented in an aesthetic manner. It is arranged, everything is well prepared, it is organized that it is pleasing to the eye, to the ear, and to the ears of anyone who's attending that. These are the two branches of philosophy. Okay, let me just recap. The first branch is cognitive branch. Under that, I want you to remember philosophical anthropology. That one looks at the fundamental, the basic, and the essential, or the most important characteristic of the human being. That's one part, or that's a branch under cognitive branch. For epistemology, it studies the nature and means of something. Normative branch, we have the ethics, politics, and aesthetics. Ethics is wider, and they say it's the technology of philosophy, while politics is actually ethics applied in the social system. Aesthetics now, it's all about when you apply something in any place, that is, whether it's in the social system or in any area, could be in your own personal life. You look at how beautifully you could arrange things, how organized and pleasing you wanted them to be. That is under aesthetic. These are the two branches of philosophy: cognitive branch and the formative branch. So let me recap today's discussion. We started by defining what philosophy is. It is actually composed of two words, philo and sophy. Philo means love and sophy means wisdom. Put together, we define philosophy as the love of wisdom. And those people who study philosophy, we call them philosophers. And therefore, they are the lovers of wisdom. Philosophy started somewhere in Greece, and in a city or in the town named Miletus. There's a certain man in there, a very wise man, intelligent one. He existed somewhere in 624 and 546 BCE. He is named Thales. His idea is very unique, as it opened the minds of the Greeks. As we know, Greeks believe in mythology. So Thales posted a question which says, what is the ultimate stuff of the universe? He actually wants to know whether there is something that is common in everything in the universe, not just the earth, but the universe. He was asking whether there is something that binds everything together. And so his questioning, somehow it was rejected at first by the Greeks, but after a while, some of them opened their ideas and they realized there is more than the myths that they believe in, because Thales opened their minds. And his work further developed, leading to him discovering or understanding the difference between religion and philosophy. Philosophy for him is all about reason or reasoning, and religion is all about faith. Faith or belief in something higher than any one of us. The work of Thales further led into understanding the characteristics of philosophical activity. They used the widest generalization, the fundamental, and they also used the desire to integrate things into one coherent whole, because they say when something or people are joined together as a group, when there is unity, they say it is easier to lead a country or a group of people. So they wanted, many of the philosophers use that characteristic to bring out their argument. And philosophy is branched into two. We have the normative and the cognitive branch. And under the cognitive branch, we have philosophical anthropology, which looks at the basic and the most important characteristic of human nature. Epistemology, however, is into studying the nature and the means of something. For the normative branch, we have included three: ethics, politics, and aesthetics. They say ethics is the standard of doing good. It is the way, it is our tool into, or it is our technology of philosophy. They say it's the technology of philosophy. Politics now is ethics put or applied in a social system. Aesthetic, however, is the way of applying it beautifully, arranging it in such a manner that is pleasing to our senses. For the tools, philosophers use ultimately reason as a tool into understanding knowledge or truth. But of course, they have these philosophical question and logical reasoning as a way of understanding things too. Philosophical reflection, which I want you to remember for today, for our discussion today, is composed of two. We have holistic way or approach of reflection, and the other one is partial. Holistic is somehow looking at the totality of something, the situation or a thing or an event, and reflecting holistically rather, taking the negative, both the negative and the positive side. Whereas the partial approach of reflection is somehow limited into a certain part or an area which most probably is applicable to the person taking it. Okay? And philosophical reflection, it's the act of giving time and thinking about the meaning and the purpose of life. They say there are two ways of reflecting: primary approach and secondary approach. Don't ever forget the two kinds of approaches that we have today. We have the holistic versus the partial approach. That's it. I hope that you learned something from this discussion. That encompasses the module 1 of your class, Introduction to the Philosophy of a Human Person. Thank you.